Live with CDP Sports Talk, a weekly sports and entertainment podcast sponsored by Barry Cullen Chevrolet. Live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and LinkedIn. And on audio via Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, Anchor FM, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Radio Public, and TuneIn. Now, here's your host, Chris Palme.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Season 8, Episode 31, overall 416 of Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show, sponsored by Barry Cullen Chevrolet Dealership at 905 Woodlawn Road West in the Guelph Auto Mall. Check out barrycullen.com for the newest selection of new and pre-owned GM vehicles, or give them a call at 519-824-0210. Or you can email the dealership at info@barrycullen.com. Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show is on weeknights from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern on radio station WQEE 99.1 FM in Noonan, Georgia, the home of Southern Talk and Sports. I hope everyone's doing well on this Monday, July 22nd, 2024. I just got back from Buffalo, New York late last night. I went to a Bison's game against the Scranton Wilkes-Barre Rail Riders, the farm team of the Yankees. They beat the Blue Jays farm team, the Bisons, 4-0. If you've never been down to Salem Field in Buffalo, go check out a minor league game, AAA game. You're seeing the future Major League stars down in Buffalo as well. We have some news before I bring on my guest this morning. Being a CFL fan and a longtime Toronto Argonaut fan from since 1979, their longtime Argonauts color analyst and former linebacker from 65 to 72, Peter Martin, everyone calls him Pete, passed away at the age of 83. And Pete spent 7 years as an Argo linebacker and 25 years as an Argo broadcaster as a color analyst. And I grew up in Oakville, Ontario in the 70s, listening to the Argo broadcasts a lot because of their TV blackouts. And I just want to say my deepest sympathies and condolences to Peter Martin's family and friends and the Toronto Argonauts again. So Peter Martin passed away at the age of 83, and he made such a huge impact on me and many Toronto Argonaut fans, and as a high school coach in the Toronto area as well. So, all right, guys, I'm going to bring on my guest today. This will be his first time, and he's a color analyst as well. He's a longtime color analyst for the Edmonton Elks radio broadcast on 630 CHED in Edmonton, Alberta since 2006, and he's been a part of the Elks or the Eskimos radio broadcast crew since 2004. And I'm excited to have Dave Campbell on here today. And we're going to talk a little Edmonton Elks and maybe a little bit of CFL news as well. Good morning, Dave. How you doing?
Chris, it's great to be on the show. Thank you very much. And I'm saddened to hear the passing of Pete Martin, who was one of my favorite people. And, you know, when I broke in 2006, as a color analyst, and it's intimidating, but, Pete, was one of those guys that, accepted me with open arms and said, hey, ask me questions. And he was a gem, funny guy, intense guy, but most of the time, and he had a quick wit. I mean, he had a line for anything. So, and I'm saddened to hear about the passing of Pete Martin. He was one heck of a person.
When I hear his name, I automatically think of the Toronto Argonauts, not just as a linebacker for 7 years, but as a broadcaster for 25 years with 6 different play-by-play commentators over the decades. And to me, Pete was a professional, and I never got to see him play as a linebacker because I wasn't born until 72. But I grew up loving the Argonauts thanks to Pete Martin and Bob Bertina on CFR B1010 in Toronto. And radio has been a huge part of my life as a sports fan. And I was able to meet Pete last year at the Toronto Argonauts 150th anniversary celebration at BMO Field, and was able to get a picture with him. And it's just sad news today about today.
Yeah, it is. It is for sure. So you're right. I mean, that's so many, play-by-play guys to work with. Like I've worked with 2, and I think that's a lot sometimes. But Pete could get along with anybody. I mean, that was Pete, and he was like he was just so fluid as a broadcaster, and just a great guy. He's going to be missed for sure.
And the Argos just put him in there to the all-time Argos list as a builder as well, which was well deserving.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Anyways, Dave, crazy week around the CFL. Every week, every game comes down to pretty well the last play of the game. And the Elks, again, unfortunately fell short to a very improved Ottawa team, 20-14. And I just wanted to get your thoughts on their loss to Ottawa. And this team, I know, is 0-6, but to me, as a CFL fan, I think they should have 3 or 4 wins.
Yeah, I would say very least they should be 3-3. To be 0-6 is disastrous. That's just nightmarish. The game itself, I was impressed the way the defense bounced back after having a terrible game on July 14th. And Drew Brown had 480 yards passing, and 270 came from 6 completions, for goodness sake. So this team just gives up too many explosions on defense. And unfortunately for Chris Jones, that was his last game. The defense played very well, and people are going to say, and yes, it is valid, they were on the field in the fourth. They had a chance to get a stop for their offense, and they didn't do it. Okay, yeah, fair. No problem there. That was fair. However, the offense was not very good, and I was shocked, absolutely shocked. No spark. They were so flat. McLeod Bethel Thompson, worst game of the year. And no, I don't think necessarily Trey Ford should start on Sunday, although we'll probably dive into that, and I got more thoughts on that. It was just like they can't run the football. Their longest completion, I think, was 22 yards to Geno Lewis. They lost an offensive lineman and Hunter Stewart at right guard. That didn't help. Special teams, Boris Beatty, who they're counting on. Last year
Mr. Reliable was the Argonaut.
Yeah, 94.9% success rate, and I haven't looked at his average this year because I know it's not good. You missed 3 field goals, and one of them went for a single. You left 8 points on the field, so potentially you could have won that game, right? But the offense couldn't finish a drive. No touchdowns. It was disappointing. Tough week too, because Jarius Jackson took over as interim head coach in a short week against the same opponent, so that probably helped. But the shock for me is how listless the offense was. So frustrating loss, because it was another game that the Elks had in their grasp, and they couldn't capitalize on the chances they were given, especially the short fields. The turnovers, the stops the defense were giving them, and 4 times they were inside Ottawa Red Black territory to start drives and came away with very little.
I wanted to ask you this. In that game against Ottawa, was a wind a factor with the field goals? Because I know Ottawa's kicker missed a kick too. Was that a factor in his misses?
I noticed in the second half especially, and going into the fourth quarter, but when the second half started, there was a bit of a wind that picked up, and you weren't really sure where it was blowing, right? And you look in the flags of the goalposts, and they were doing funny things, right? But eventually, it was a pretty true wind, and the Red Blacks had the wind at their back in the fourth quarter, where the Elks did not. Now, Beatty was able to connect on a short field goal to cut the lead to 6, or the deficit to 6. So, but yeah, there was a bit of a win there, but it's tough to say, right? I don't think they were. I can't remember the distances from where he missed from, but I don't think they were, out of his range, let's just say. So it was, but wind was a bit of a factor. I would agree.
Game for 20 years and the CFL for a while. Every game, this too, Dave, comes down to even a couple of plays, and it just seems like something always comes back to bite them in the butt at the end of the game. Like the game against Ottawa, it looked like they were going overtime, and for whatever reason, Boris Beatty, I'm not blaming him for the loss, but he kicked the ball out of bounds, and that just set up Ottawa with tremendous field position. And the way Drew Brown played that night, that stunned them with a 50-yard kick at the end of the game.
Yeah, they found ways to lose in very creative ways again. In the first game against Saskatchewan, they had a 2-possession lead and they blew it. They lost by 8 points. Against Montreal, they were right step for step. They never led in the game, but they were right there. But then they gave up 2 explosions. They gave up a almost a 40-plus yard touchdown from Walter Fletcher on a screen, for goodness sakes, a screen that had no intentions of scoring. It was just, get down with the time remaining, just, maybe kick a field goal. But there was no intent to score on that play. But, missed tackles helped. And then Fletcher had a 39-yard touchdown on a run. So 2 plays there, and then, McLeod Bethel-Thompson had 2 picks, and Dylan Mitchell dropped a sure touchdown pass. And then you go 3 straight games of walk-off field goals. 3 straight games.
Has that ever happened in Elks Eskimos history? I should look that up.
Has that ever happened in any level of football?
I should Google that, because doing it once is devastating, but 3 weeks in a row. And Dave, as a broadcaster, you're around the team a lot. They've only lost 6 games by 26 points. They're very close to winning. What is the mood like with this team right now, and how's the media and the fan base taking this?
Well, the fan base is not happy with this group. I mean, since 2021, I believe the record's something like 11-45, if I'm correct. And then if you look at the midway point of the 2019 season, they did make the playoffs and went to the East Final that year, but they were 6-3 and only won 2 games after that. Now it was enough to make the playoffs, but they've lost 52 games and they've only won 13 games since then. So the fan base is upset. And the media, obviously, they're giving them a hard time. I think it's mixed with the media. Some are, baffled by it and can't understand why a team with some talent, and this is a good talented team, I think, especially on offense. And they got good players in all 3 phases, but there's some confusion. And then there's some that were just right mad at Chris Jones and felt that he was a colossal failure. And really, how can you argue against that? I'm a little concerned about this loss, because I think every loss that they've had, I think they have still believed, and they believe that they can turn this around and make the right plays. And McLeod Bethel-Thompson on TSN and on our post game show, all he wanted to talk about was the schedule and the short week, and he'll get a big fine again at some point. So that concerned me, because you're going to get another one Labor Day. I hope he knows that, because it's coming. The Labor Day series is coming. That's tradition since 1989, and now they moved it to Saturday, the rematch. So it's a little extra time to rest, but that concerned me. They got a few injuries. Scott Hutter, their defensive back and leader on special teams, he's out for the season with a leg injury, and I was a little concerned, I think, after the game. And you got to give consider this is a long week of prep, because they have 9 days between the game in Ottawa and at home to Hamilton. So that gives Jarius Jackson and G. Roy Simon a little bit more time to kind of tweak a little bit. So, but it's frustrating. It's just, no one predicted 0-6. People thought that, I thought they could get to 8 wins this year. Now maybe they still can, but a lot of people say it's early, right? But it gets early late, in the CFL. So they got 12 games left. Middle third starts on Sunday, and there's winnable games there for the Elks, and they got to start winning them, because teams are starting to run away from them again.
Dave, I agree. With the 12 games left, they're going to need to win at least 7 or 8 out of them. And the game against Hamilton coming up this Sunday night in Edmonton, to me, is a must win. And Hamilton got their first win against my Argonauts on Saturday night, 27-24. But the Tiger Cats still have a lot of issues on both sides of the ball. So this is going to be a very competitive, close game. But this is a game, to me, the Elks really need to get that first win and to build some confidence and to keep their chances of getting a playoff spot alive, because you don't want to go 0-7 and then just have it keep snowballing.
No, I mean, it was 0-9 before they got their first win in Hamilton, actually. And then they went on a bit of a heater. With that game, they won 4 or 5, and then they lost 4 games in a row. So, and then even like last year, they won games to keep themselves in the conversation, but teams above them kept winning. So, and that's the fear that you have now is, I mean, look, the crossover right now, you would have to surpass Toronto, but they have 3 wins. The Elks have none, right? So you have to beat them outright. You have to beat that team outright if you're going to cross over. You look at the West, and the Bombers have 2 wins, so that's attainable if, you got back-to-back coming up in September. Then you got back-to-back Labor Day series and another game in October against the Stampeders, so you don't want to say that's insurmountable. But, Riders keep finding ways to win, and I don't know how. I mean, I'm still waiting for them to come back a little bit. And then the Lions at 5-2, they're the class of the league, in my opinion. The Alouettes are going to be hard-pressed without Cody Fajardo, who's slated to be out for weeks. But, you got to start winning games here, because teams are going to start running away from you. And they have games coming up against teams that they need to beat and need to surpass. And if you get Hamilton, you can beat them twice. That's good. But it's 0-6 again. You're just digging yourself out of a big hole, and you're chasing, and all you do is chase. And really, I think at this stage you got to forget about the standings. It's about getting 1 win now. Get the 1 win and get the feeling in that locker room of a winning atmosphere, and build off of that.
I'm assuming McLeod Bethel Thompson going forward is still going to be the starter, but is there getting a debate with the fan base and maybe even some of the media that at some point maybe we should just see what Trey Ford can do the rest of the year and see if he's a long-term solution as starting quarterback?
Oh, that's been the raging debate since whenever McLeod was signed in that first week of January, right? And look, McLeod has had, I would say, a good year. 3rd in the league in passing, and that interception number is a little too high, I would say. I think it's at 7 now. But overall, I think I wouldn't peg 0-6 necessarily on the offense. I haven't liked how the defense played. I think Boris Beatty has missed too many kicks, that sort of thing. But when you're 0-6, you're going, we were paid this guy $500,000 to win games, and he's not. Now, I don't know if you can just give the keys over to Trey Ford. I mean, they did last year after Taylor Cornelius couldn't win a game. I don't think McLeod Bethel Thompson has been as bad as Taylor Cornelius, though. So it's tough, and Trey Ford got in for 2 series in the second quarter, and then McLeod didn't handle it very well, even though he knew it was coming. Now, maybe the problem here is he didn't know when it was coming. And I watched the TSN panel reviewing the game, and Paul LaPolice made a good point. When he was the offensive coordinator with the Bombers, and they had Chris Streveler. So Streveler performed short yardage. So get a first down, great. Okay, we're going to keep you in. Get another first down, you get another play. Get another first down, you get another play. If you don't get a first down, we put Zach Collaros back in. And Zach probably knew that, right? Trey Ford doesn't operate short yardage. I don't think he ever will, right? Dakota Prukop is pretty good at it. So it's, when do you use Trey Ford? And here's my point now. You're 0-6. I don't care who the starter is anymore. I don't care who plays. Play Jarrett Dagey if you want. I don't care. You need a quarterback that's going to help you win. Okay? And again, I don't think the quarterback, McLeod Bethel Thompson, has been the number one reason why this team has lost. I don't think he would be in the top 5. But you're 0-6, right? It's probably time to think out of the box. But look, Jarius Jackson is the head coach now, and the offensive coordinator, and the quarterback's coach. He has to see, or he has to know for himself who he believes is going to be his best chance to win, which guy. It's hard to platoon. It's hard to have a 2-quarterback system now. Who does it? No one does it, right? Streveler comes in now in that same scenario under Buck Pierce as Paul LaPolice, right? But really, it's up to Jarius Jackson to pick who he believes will help him, and forget about feelings. If McLeod's mad, so what? If Trey Ford is upset, so what? You got to find a way to win games, and that's how it is right now. But look, I'll just say this about Trey Ford. I love his talent. I love his ability. I don't know if he's good enough to be a week-to-week starter yet, but I would love to see him more. But the tricky thing is, how do you do it?
Especially when you're paying McLeod Bethel Thompson a big salary on top of it.
Yeah, you can't ignore that, right? I mean, you're going to sit your $500,000 quarterback after 6 games. That's not happening. But if there's a chance to get Trey Ford in there, how do you do it? And that's tricky because he's not a short yardage quarterback. And I don't know if you can just pivot away from Dakota Prukop and just say, okay, Trey's going to do it. What if Trey doesn't want to do it? Maybe he's not good at it. Like, I don't know. It's tricky. It's tricky when your quarterback isn't your short yardage quarterback, because that's the easiest way to say you stay in and you run another play or two, right? Instead of, okay, we're just going to put you in a random at some point in the game and see how it goes.
What's the current what is the current status of the Elks ownership, and just thoughts on G. Simon and Jarius Jackson taking over this team interns? Do you see a permanent head coach and GM being hired in season, or do you figure they'll do it in the off season?
So they would do it in the off season, I believe. They'll see how Jarius, G. How they handle this next 12 games, how many games they win. It's, I would say they're in tough, right? But they have 12 games to prove that that they can, they're justified to come back in 25. Maybe more for Jarius than G-Roy. I mean, I could see, G-Roy maybe having a little more rope than Jarius. So, but we'll see. As far as ownership is concerned, they're right there at the end. And this is the part that takes the longest, probably. Now, led to believe as a couple weeks ago, there wasn't just one group involved. There might have been another owner or ownership group. There's some names which I won't talk about here because I don't want to get myself in trouble.
Okay, no problem.
And I believe they're local, so that's good. I believe they have money and they want to spend it. When we get an announcement, we've heard everything from, soon to sometime next month, maybe middle of August, maybe not till after the season. I don't know. As Rick Lawlisher reminded me, Amar Doman didn't sign the deal to be the owner of the BC Lions until 30 minutes prior to the press conference. So the ownership transfers or ownership deals are hard to do. This one in particular, because it's a transfer of ownership from one model to another, public or community owned to private owned. And I don't know if this is a true sale, because where's the money going, right? I mean, we got to know how it works here. I mean, there's a board of directors who are volunteers. And then you have about 80 shareholders who pay like $10 a pop to have voting rights, right? So I wouldn't be surprised if you would see something like, okay, you sign an agreement to be the owners for this amount of time, like let's just say 5 years. It's an injection of cash immediately. And then the board of directors kind of stay around, and then they slowly go into the background, and they're gone completely at some point. So it's progressing. And, the thing is too, with Chris Jones being let go last week, the owners, the potential owner or owners had to be consulted by Rick Lawlisher, because, okay, it's going to be about 31% of his salary that'll be on your football operations cap. Are you okay with that? And they were okay with that. So, and I'll give Rick Lawlisher credit too. He could have just made this year a lame duck year, but he's fighting for 24 as well. And I've known Rick a long time, and I'm not surprised that he did this. I'm surprised he pulled it off when he did in a short week, but once Rick knows what he wants, he goes and, gets it done. So we're all hoping that Jarius and G-Roy do well. But boy, they got a huge hill to climb, and now it's about building that culture and the process that they believe that will be successful to win. So good luck to them. I mean that sincerely.
And to me, the CFL is a much stronger league when the Edmonton Elks are a very competitive team. And I hear this from the fans that, it's because of the name change, but that has nothing to do with it. It's just getting the right ownership, the right management people in place, and getting the right players. The name has nothing to do with whether a team wins or loses.
It's a tired narrative, honestly. And I know the name change upset a lot of people, right? And they said, well, I'm never coming back. And it's too bad a name is more important than the legacy of a franchise. And that's what the 75th celebration was all about before the home opener and season opener against the Riders. It was great to have the annual dinner back. It was great to see the legends all around. And I don't know if you saw it, Chris, but my broadcast partner, Morley Scott, took a picture when the Legends Lounge was unveiled on the east concourse of Commonwealth. And I think there was Michael Riley and Ricky Ray, Matt Dunnigan, Damon Allen, Tracy Ham, Warren Moon, all around the Grey Cup. I'm like,
legends.
Wow. Like, that's incredible. And, there's more. Tom Wilkinson, who's, not doing as well health-wise, he could have been included in that picture too. There's so many others, but like, this franchise is still storied. It's amazing. And, there's rumors about, okay, will they change the name back? And it's, okay. Like, in one hand, you could just do it to make a few fans or a section of fans happy that's saying that they won't come back. Maybe they would come back. I don't know. But then you look at a corporate sponsor part of it too. Like, you got to talk to them as well, right? Remember why I think a big reason why this name change happened is because their bottom line was threatened by a number of sponsors. So I don't know. It's easier to say than do. But I would say it's probably not happening, folks. Like, I don't think it's happening. Could they change the name to another name? Maybe, right? Maybe they don't like the name Elks. I don't know. But is it going to go back to the old name? No, I don't think so.
Here's an example right now. The Cleveland Indians, who are now the Guardians, they had the name Indians for 100 years. People were outraged about it. They're now the Guardians, but guess what? They're winning, and now with the team winning, I don't hear any complaints about the name change.
Nobody cares.
Winning sells.
Yeah.
Winning sells and cures a lot of issues.
If the Washington Commanders could start winning and be a fun team to watch and, just win games. Yeah, win games. No one would care that they were called the Commanders. I agree with you wholeheartedly.
Hey, Dave, if you got a few more minutes, I want to ask you a couple more questions. I'm a huge fan of Chris Jones. I think he was a great defensive coordinator, and he was a coach of the Elks before I led him to a Grey Cup. Why did Chris Jones, his second stint with the Elks, did not work out, and what were some of the reasons, in your opinions?
I think, okay, so to start, when he was hired back in December of 21, the football operations cap was full of former coaches and GMs, most recently from the time he was hired, Jamie Elizondo and Brock Sunderland, coach and GM, were let go. Chris Preston was let go too, but that doesn't count on your presidents don't count on your ops cap. And then prior to that, Jason Moss was let go in 19. And then Noel Thorpe was let go. I'm kind of jumping the queue here a little bit, but Noel Thorpe was let go after 21 as well as a defensive coordinator. So you had four former coaches, GMs, coordinators that were on their books. So they were operating under, $500,000 with their football ops cap compared to anyone else. So
wow.
The quality of coaching staff was not as good as it could have been. The help around Chris Jones, and right, we still don't know about G. Roy Simon, right? Because we don't know, okay, how many players did he have his hands in, or involvement in signing? Because it was always Chris Jones, obviously, as a GM, who would have final say. He spent a lot of money in areas where we're a little curious. To give Kenny Lawler $300,000 in 22, and then the same for Gino Lewis in 23, and this season was curious. Not enough money probably to address the O-line or D-line. 23, they went younger on defense, even though they did have some veterans. They gave starter money to Taylor Cornelius in September 22 because they were afraid they were going to lose him to the XFL. Okay. And at the time, I thought Taylor was, kind of showing some signs that he may be a starting quarterback in the CFL. And then he had that punctured lung in the game against the Argos when Henoch Mwamba hit him out of his uniform. Came back as the starter in 23. Didn't win a game, right? The decision this year, they had no restrictions on the cap. They were clear of the football ops cap and signed a very young, or put together a very young coaching staff on defense outside of Jason Shivers, who I thought was a very good hire. I think he's a very good coordinator in this league, defensive coordinator, and basically thinks like Jones or has similar philosophies as far as scheme and stuff. Got younger on defense because Ed Gainey was let go. I understand why. Jake Serezna traded for Curly Gittens. That was a tough one, even though Curly Gittens is a good receiver. Jake Serezna is an excellent interior D lineman. AC Leonard wasn't re-signed. He wanted too much money. So they were depleted with veterans. They had Lucius Purefoy at safety and Niles Morgan at middle linebacker. Those were their veterans. Then they signed Sean Oakman, defensive tackle, who's looked good so far in 2 games, and Derek Moncrief, same thing, linebacker at Sam. So I would say there's some curious roster decisions made by Chris Jones, some curious trades made by Chris Jones, trading away Nafis Lyon, because he didn't have the size that he liked. Trading away David Beard, who was probably the best center in the league and still is. There's a lot of trades that, don't make a lot of sense. The treatment of Trey Ford or that back and forth. And I don't know if Trey should be absolved of responsibility, but, again, it's the he said, she said thing. He doesn't want to play. Well, I do want to play. And, well, you don't want to be a package guy. Well, I never said that, right? It's just stupid, the back and forth. And I've always said this line too, because Chris Jones was the head coach and the GM. What would Chris Jones, the head coach, think of Chris Jones, the GM? I would think if I were him, you didn't give me an opportunity to win, right? So it's just too bad. And I think also they needed a little more predictability with players, things like when you don't wait till the morning of practice to give the practice time, for example. I heard that was happening, and athletes need clarity. Pro athletes need clarity, and I think Jarius Jackson's going to provide them that along with G. Roy Simon. Another thing that was a bit of concern is all the competition and compete in camp, or sorry, not in camp, but in practice. So we're going to run 70 plays today. Well, do you have to? Like the first time last week, I think it was Wednesday, I saw a scout team. Against, I think it was Skelly. So first team offense, first team defense are playing a scout team. So it was more thinking and more teaching. And yes, there was the physical part of it too. So I think, Jarius Jackson and G. Roy Simon want a little more clarity with the schedule, things making things more predictable. Accountability is something that he has preached as well, that maybe Chris Jones wasn't doing, especially when it comes to penalties. And then, more, let's just say, let's start reserving energy for game day instead of trying to expend it all in practice. And let's play as fast as we can in practice so we can play as fast as we can on game day. I don't think that works as much anymore.
One word I wanted to use, Dave, was structure. And obviously Chris Jones had a good career as a defensive coordinator. Do you feel in the future they will give the head coach and the GM the same role, or that you feel it's too much for one guy these days?
I think they'll split it because they can now. They gave Chris Jones the dual, well, basically it was a triple role. He was the head coach, GM, and defensive coordinator because they had to, because they didn't have the money in the football ops cap to spend on all 3 of those guys separately. So you give Chris Jones he was making good money. Like I heard, $650,000, maybe a bit more. But that's a bargain because you have 3 in 1, right? I think they will split the roles this time. They'll have a GM, they will have a head coach, and I think it'll work better that way.
What is your assessment of McLeod Bethel Thompson so far with his leadership and experience, and thoughts with Curly Gittens Jr., who had really good chemistry with McLeod in Toronto? And can you see Curly becoming a 1,000-yard receiver with the Elks?
Yeah, he's kind of slowed up a bit though. Last I'd say 3-4 games. The thing about the Elks receiving corps is it's deeper than I think it was last year. They miss Kyron Moore, though. They miss that one-on-one receiver that can make a guy miss, in single coverage, that sort of thing. You throw him a short ball, and he can make, 5 yards into 35 yards. So He and Curley and McLeod were on the same page a lot in the first, I'd say 2-3 games. And now the ball's kind of being spread out a little bit more. We're seeing Gino Lewis get involved more, a little more work for Arkell Smith, and, Dylan Mitchell has been, again, first 3 games, 4 games active, now has been a little quiet. So it is a deep receiving core, but you see absolutely McLeod and Curley Gittins are just on the same page. McLeod's leadership, his work ethic, it just jumps off the page. And I think it's noticeable by everyone, even on the defense. They comment how much he works, how much he cares, his compete level. Honestly, this is the best quarterback when it comes to, his in-practice work and off-field work since probably Michael Riley. It just hasn't translated to wins for whatever reason. And again, it's, people point to the 0-6 record, and I'm like, well, the quarterback record isn't always indicative of the quarterback, but he's been as advertised, and probably like he's just a pure thrower. He's got good mechanics as well, and thinks the game very well, and competes well, and like he'll take off and run, and he'll do that because he wants to win so badly. So, I just really hope they start winning, because I think he's been a really good signing. I think he's been really good for this team. Veteran leader, been good for Trey Ford and all the other quarterbacks. But, we want to see some wins now.
One way to win a game is with special teams. Obviously, Boris Beatty, who I still think is one of the best kickers in the league. But I wanted to get your thoughts, Dave, on former Argonaut. I thought this was going to be a huge loss in Javon Leake. I thought he was going to be a big addition to the Elks, and I just wanted to get your thoughts on his play so far.
It's been up and down. It's probably been, middle of the road, I would say. Now, in the first game, he returned a punt return for a touchdown, which was called back by a penalty. He's had a few nice returns called back because of a penalty, right? So that has really flipped the field position around. Going into this was before the game in Ottawa, they had the worst drive start of anyone in the league, right? So penalties, I think, were a big part of that. So it probably hasn't been. I agree with you. I thought Javon Leake was going to be a big loss for the Argos and a huge gain for the Elks. Really hasn't translated. I don't know. Returners come here to die. I don't know why it is. They haven't really found one since since Giz.
He was amazing.
Yeah. And, I'll mention Christian Salisbury, unfortunately lost his life in December 22. He was fantastic as a returner, and I thought he was going to be the answer. But, unfortunately tragedy struck, and we miss Christian still to this day as a not just as a player, but as a man. But yeah, Javon, he's put 2 balls on the ground. From the running back position. He's had trouble fielding punts or kickoffs. I think there was a couple occasions where he could have let the ball bounce into the end zone, and instead he decided to pick the ball up and try and return the ball. Like I think in Ottawa, he did that on the final drive for the Elks, and I mean there was only 11 seconds left, I know, and when there probably would have been more time. Maybe they would have had 15, 16 seconds left, but he, instead of letting the ball bounce into the end zone and concede, he decides to return the ball. Instead of being on the 40, he's inside the 20. So there's no way they were going to win that game. So yeah, Javon hasn't come as advertised enough, I would say. He's had some nice returns, but not enough of good ones. Hasn't been helped by penalties. Injuries on special teams doesn't help as well. They lost, as I mentioned, Scott Hutter for the year. Josiah Shackle has been in and out of the lineup, and and I go back to the kicker. I have to go back to Boris, because Boris has made some mistakes, and that hasn't helped as well. Jake Julian has punted the ball extremely well. He's been a joy to watch. But yeah, still waiting for that big one from Javon Leake, even though we did see a few of them. But yeah, it would help if they get some good returns to set up field position.
And I'm going to make it a prediction. I think he's going to have his first touchdown this Sunday against Hamilton. And if you got a couple more minutes, I wanted to get your thoughts on their upcoming opponent against the Hamilton Tiger Cats, who are 1-5 coming off a big win against Toronto, but they still are having some issues on all sides of the
Yeah.
balls. And I wanted
Mm.
to I wanted to ask you, Dave, what are some keys to an Elks win over Hamilton on Sunday night at Commonwealth Stadium?
You got to hurt their defense, especially their secondary. It's not very good, in my opinion. They miss Casatonis. I don't know if Richard Leonard's back, but they would miss him as well. The secondary is not good. It's not good. They're not getting enough pressure up front. I think it's a team they can hurt on defense. They can, McLeod can find some, let's just say, opportunities with that defense. I think Bo Levi Mitchell has played. I think he's played fairly well.
Yes, I agree.
I think James Butler has played fairly well. The problem is they just don't have the talented receiving core. I think that Bo would be able to take advantage of. Obviously, Tim White's very good. Stephen Dunbar, who was here in Edmonton last year, got hurt with about 5 games left. I liked him a lot, but again, it feels like he's got a ceiling. This is a team that can be beat for sure. Now, the problem is Hamilton looks at the Elks and go, they can be beat as well. But for me, this offense can get back on track with that Tiger Cat defense because I don't think it's very good.
I think it's going to come down to special teams. That's my gut feeling. And I feel this is going to be a very close game. And it's a big game for both teams because Hamilton wants to get back in the playoff hunt with a second straight win and their first row win. And the Elks obviously want to get their first win of the year as well and try to get their confidence up as well. And Hamilton, Tim White's a very talented receiver, but he's not had a great year yet. And that kind of worries me if I was a visiting team because eventually he's going to have a breakout game. So I think that's going to be a key. And James Butler is somebody else I would keep an eye on as well because I think he's a very good pass catcher, but I think he's a good running back too.
Yeah, and the Elks' run defense has been better, I would say, overall. They're finally getting their D-line involved, and Sean Oakman's been a big reason. And I'll credit Armando Sewell as well, and he was named the D-line coach because Nate O'Neill resigned because he's got a family issue down in the States. We wish Nate all the best. But Mondo is an effort guy, and he just played. He's 1 year removed from being a player with the Alouettes and winning a Grey Cup last year, and we saw, I think, the results of it early in Ottawa. That D-line played very well. That's the best they've played. And they're coming off 2 good performances. I didn't think they were as good at home, but they actually got some pressure on Drew Brown. Every time he was pressured, he did something, he picked the ball or the ball was picked off or he made some sort of mistake. So so that D-line's getting involved in the run game a lot more than they're going to have to against James Butler, who's very physical.
And finally, Dave, I just wanted to get your quick thoughts on the Canadian Football League after Week 7 across the league, and who's been a surprise team, and maybe one team that's kind of disappointed so far.
Surprise team, I'd say Saskatchewan. I didn't think they were going to be this good, and they've done well with Shea Patterson at quarterback. Does that have a lifespan? I don't know. Like, again, he's what is it, 2-1 as a starter, I think. So that's good. That's good, and they're staying above water. Corey Mace has brought in a lot of positivity and good culture there. So that's really good. So I think they're formidable. I just don't know if it's sustainable. Maybe it is. I'm going to have Rider fans mad at me. Sorry. But, full marks so far. I think they're the biggest surprise of the league. The biggest disappointment, well, outside of the team I cover, I guess you would have to say the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, right? Because they're 2-5, and I didn't think that they would have the type of year they've enjoyed the last few. I didn't think they'd be 2-5 though. I thought there was enough there, but didn't think that Dalton Schoen would be out for the year. Didn't think Kenny Lawler would be out long term. They've lost a lot of good quality receivers on offense. Their defense seems to be getting better. And I said last year, they're kind of showing their age a little bit. They're really showing their age in some areas, and inexperience in some, and aging in others. But still, I didn't think they were going to be 2-5. So that's my biggest surprise outside of the 0-6 Edmonton Elks.
And I think the most improved team besides Saskatchewan, I would give right behind Saskatchewan would be Ottawa. I know their record's only 3-3, but I really think they've improved. And I think Drew Brown can be a long-term franchise quarterback for the Red Blacks.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the trend is going up for him. The arrows are going up, and it's little progressions every week. But the thing in Ottawa is they found ways to win, right? And they've been closing out games where the Elks haven't, So there's still some concern about the Red Blacks from people that I talk to that cover the team, but they're winning. It's better to be 4-2 than 0-6. I can tell you.
Yeah, 4-2. I think I had them at 3-3. The Argonauts are at 3-3 as well. But you've been covering the league for 20 years, or the Elks as well, the color analyst. How much more talented and competitive this league has become in the last 2 decades?
Oh, it's been good. It's been, I mean, they're not far behind the NFL, and I think what separates the NFL from the CFL is, they have these behemoths down there that can go sideline to sideline and they're quick, right? That's what sets them apart. Their overall talent is a tick above, I think, the CFL. But there are players in this league that should be playing down there, and for whatever reason, they're not. We can spend a half an hour on those reasons, right? But I think the talent level has been always very good in the CFL. And the quarterback play, I think, is starting to come back, where I think there was a concern, a few years ago or even a couple years ago. But yeah, I mean, the talent in the CFL has always been very good. And, a little bit of a downturn because you have the 2 leagues with the USFL and the XFL, and they were, obviously being down in the States, it's easy to pluck teams from Division One. But that's starting to come back now, and the CFL, teams are starting to get access to more players too.
And I tell younger generation fans, you can love the NFL, but you can love the CFL. You don't have to choose one. You can enjoy both. And the CFL and the NFL season overcrosses. So it's just, and I love the game. And even the college football here in Canada has gotten so much better over the years as well. And it's great to see Canadian talent do well in the Canadian Football League as well.
Yeah, more pro-ready players coming through U Sports now. They're still behind the NCAA, but you're seeing improvements over time. That the U Sports level is definitely improving.
All right, Dave. And finally, where can my audience follow you on social media and your next Elks broadcast on CHED 630? And in your 20-year career, what is your most memorable game you've done as a broadcaster?
Okay, so I'll answer that one first. Probably my most favorite game was the 2015 Western Final against the Calgary Stampeders. I know the Elks a week later won the Grey Cup in Winnipeg. Morley and I couldn't broadcast that game because of, broadcast rights rules. Bell Media got the rights to broadcast the radio for the Grey Cup. So, oh well, we were there but didn't do the game. But it was over 35,000 at Commonwealth. It was magical. It was a just pure celebration, pure joy. So that game will always be my most memorable game for sure. You can find me on Twitter or X, or we'll call it TwitX, on at Dave_Ched. That's where you can find me. I'll also reference people to the Elks page, 630ched.com/Elks, and you can find some written content and a lot of audio there during the practice week. So there you go.
All right. Well, Dave, thank you so much for coming on today and giving us over 45 minutes of your time. And I want to say continued success in your broadcasting career, and the Elks will turn it around. I believe this franchise will start winning football games again. And I would like to get out to Commonwealth Stadium one day to see a game there as well, because I hear it's still a beautiful stadium to watch a game, even though it opened up in 78.
Yep, it still is. It's a gem. I love it. I love calling games there. I love working out of there. And if you come down one day, I would definitely love to meet you in person.
All right. Well, Dave, thank you so much again for coming on live with CDP Sports Entertainment Talk Show, and continued success. And I'm looking forward to week 8 of the CFL coming up this week as well. Thank you so much, Dave.
Thank you, Chris, and we're going to feed off your optimism. Thank you.
I love being optimistic and being a lifelong Argo fan. I've seen the Argos have some pretty lean years too, but you just got to keep the faith, and things will turn around at some point.
Yeah, appreciate that, Chris. Thank you. It was a pleasure to be on your show.
Thanks, Dave. I hope you enjoyed season 8, episode 31 of Live with CDP Sports Entertainment Talk Show today. That was Dave Campbell, the longtime radio color analyst for the Edmonton Elks broadcast on CHED 630 in Edmonton, Alberta. You can check out the team's website at goelks.com, and I will put Dave's Twitter feed here. You can follow Dave on Twitter, X, which I call it @_CHED as well. And the radio station, you can follow them at globalnews.ca/radio/630 CHED as well. Before we wrap up our show, guys, our next Live with CDP Sports Entertainment Talk Show is coming very soon. Tonight at 7 o'clock. My special guest is Crystal King. She's a Nashville recording artist superstar, and we're going to talk about her latest single, House Fire. And if you're a country western fan, please check out my show tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern with Crystal King. Before we wrap up the show, guys, I was down in Buffalo a few weeks ago for my birthday. I covered the Buffalo Bisons, the top farm team of the Toronto Blue Jays, and I had the pleasure of interviewing one of them Blue Jay prospects. His name is Mason Fluharty, and my interview is courtesy of my YouTube channel. And please subscribe if you already haven't done so. This is Mason Fluharty, a reliever with the Buffalo Bisons. Radio host of Live with CDP Sports Talk on radio station WQEE 99.1 FM in Noonan, Georgia. I'm here today at Salin Field for tonight's Buffalo Bisons game against the Syracuse Mets. And first pitch at 6:35 here tonight at a very windy Salin Field. Hopefully they can get the game in. It's been raining here most of the day, and hopefully they can get it on. But I have a special guest here tonight, one of the Buffalo Bisons pitchers, and I'm going to bring him on right now. Can you tell my audience your name?
Mason Fluharty.
And you're a pitcher for the Buffalo Bisons. Just thoughts on the first half of the season, Mason?
It's going well. We had a great group of guys, and I'm really excited how the first half went. We're progressing, and it's really fun right now.
Can you tell my audience where you're from, and who were some of your early baseball influences in your career?
I'm from Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. My influences when I was younger were all the guys I played travel ball with, in summer ball. All the older guys they're the guys that I always looked up to, and I was fortunate enough to play with them, and a lot of them are big leaguers now, so that's pretty cool.
Is there a story behind your number that you wear?
No, there's no story behind the number.
Okay, and we brought it up before. You're a Dallas Cowboys fan. How did that come about?
I grew up. My dad was a Cowboys fan, so I kind of grew into it. So big time Cowboys fan.
Thoughts about the Toronto Blue Jays organization and being a part of the Buffalo Bisons?
The Blue Jays organization is the best. I'm so thankful that they drafted me. They push guys in this org, and it's really fun to compete. They draft a lot of great human beings, so I'm fortunate enough to play with them every day, be with them every day. Some of the guys that I've met throughout this whole experience so far, my 2 years, is some of the guys I met were the guys that I'm going to know forever. They're my best friends, which is great. And I'm just really fortunate, thankful that God put them in my life, and thankful that I'm here.
What kind of pitching style do you have? Are you a kind of a power pitcher or more of a finesse pitcher?
I'm more of a finesse pitcher, I guess. I just throw cutters and sliders, and just more. I pitch. I'm not a guy that's gonna blow the radar gun up, but I'm a guy that's gonna go out there and compete and pitch.
What's the hardest thing about being a starting pitcher from being in the bullpen?
I wouldn't know about being a starting pitcher, but I'm a reliever. So, but I guess I think the biggest difference between a starter and a reliever is just a reliever. You got to be able to go every day. You got to make sure your body's ready. You got to have the right routine to be ready every single day, with arm care, stretching, workouts. yeah, when starters they get 5 days in between, or 4 days in between, so it's nice for them.
When you were growing up, did you have a favorite major league team and a favorite pitcher?
I was a Phillies fan when I was growing up, big time Phillies fan. And my favorite pitcher when I was growing up was probably Roy Halladay. That was a great guy to watch. I remember growing up and watching him every week and with my dad, and yeah.
You have a favorite Philadelphia Phillies moment so far?
Philadelphia Philly moment. Probably when they won the World Series in 2008. I was really that was when I started being a diehard Phillies fan, I guess. I was really young, but yeah, that was awesome.
I was going to say I went to my first Phillies game in 1984 at the old Veterans Stadium. Did your dad ever get to go to Veterans Stadium?
He might have. I don't know. I'd have to ask him.
And finally, what's a fun fact about yourself, Mason, that Bison's fans might not know about?
Fun fact about me. Everyone calls me Flu, so it's pretty cool. Yeah, my nickname's Flu.
And have you ever been to Canada before? And do you know one thing about Canada?
I played in Vancouver with the high A team. That was the only time I've been to Canada so far. But fun fact about Canada, a lot of Tim Hortons there.
And finally, if you're on social media, where can Bison fans follow you on social media?
Instagram and Twitter.
All right. Well, Mason, I want to say thank you so much for doing this, and good luck tonight and the rest of the year.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much. That was Mason Fluharty, a reliever for the Buffalo Bisons and a Toronto Blue Jays draft pick as well. And I was down at Salem Field yesterday, and the Bisons lost 4-0 to the Scranton Wilkes-Barre Rail Riders, the top farm team of the New York Yankees as well. Again, I want to say thank you to Dave Campbell, the Edmonton Elks radio analyst, for coming on here today from CHED 630 in Edmonton. I'm going to wrap up the show shortly because I have another show tonight, 7 o'clock Eastern, with Crystal King, a Nashville recording artist, superstar, and we're going to talk about her latest single, House Fire, as well. And before we wrap this up, guys, if you're looking for a forever pet furry friend, check out the Cambridge Humane Society at 1650 Dunbar Road in Cambridge, Ontario. Telephone number 519-623-7722, and their website is at cambridgehumanesociety.org. All the animals that are up for adoption, their profiles, society.org. And also, guys, they're doing their monthly 50-50 raffle for a fundraiser for the animals at the shelter in Cambridge. If you like to get a 50-50 ticket, you can do it at the office, but you can also do it through their website, cambridgehumanesociety.org. And if you're looking to volunteer as a dog walker, like I am, once or twice a week, you can sign up as a volunteer through their website. Again, cambridgehumanesociety.org, 519-623-7722. And dogs like Luna are looking for their forever homes as well. So they do great work down there as well. And that's about it, guys. Again, I want to say thank you to Dave Campbell from CHED 630 in Edmonton for coming on. And thank you to everyone watching this live streamed on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, and also on my audio platforms such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, YouTube Music, etc. And I want to say thank you to WQEE 99.1 FM in Noonan, Georgia, for airing this show weeknights from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern. And also make sure you catch the Rod Peterson Show Monday to Friday from 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. on WQE 99.1 FM. I hope everybody has a great afternoon, and we'll see you back here tonight at 7 o'clock Eastern with Nashville recording artist, superstar Crystal King. Thank you, everybody, for watching and listening to Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show on WQEE 99.1 FM, and sponsored by Barry Cullen Chevrolet dealership here in Guelph. Have a great afternoon, everybody. We'll see you tonight at 7 o'clock for another edition of Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show.